Hi, this is Eric with the University of Brighton Visual Modeling Group. I'm just now wrapping up some work on a prototype for a ontology editor using a visual logic language which was developed by the VMG. And what I'd like to do is to show you where this work is at the sort of stopping point that we've reached. Now, you may have seen some of my earlier videos showing various stages of progress in the development of plugin, and hopefully today what you'll see is something which is a little bit more comprehensive. So the first thing I'll mention about the editor is that it is meant to sort of work as a component in the already existing WebProtege ontology editor. So WebProtege is quite interesting because it has sort of a very pluggable user interface where you can sort of build your ontology editor out of a variety of tabs. And within those tabs, you can have various components which are called portlets. So here, for example, it's a properties tree portlet. And the plugin that we are developing, or the editor we're developing, is going to come in as a concept diagram portlet for WebProtege. So looking at the portlet itself, what we have here is the basic two-pane structure where we have a broad sort of canvas on the right over here and a pattern library on the left. So the idea of using this plugin is that you pick things out of this library and sort of drag them onto the canvas. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use this class pattern to instantiate a couple classes which we'll need in this example. So I'm just going to drag this out here and then attach a name to it. And as you can see, naming this curve, which I've sort of brought out into the canvas, creates the corresponding item in the ontology. I'm just going to do the same and create a couple of more classes which we'll need. Let's call this puppy and tail. So that's class instantiation. So having instantiated a few classes by drag and drop, we can now start to take a look at some of the more interesting patterns. Before I get into this, I'm just going to resize this dog curve here to just make it accommodate having a curve inside of it. So what we're going to look at now is the second pattern here, which is the subsumption pattern, that just basically lets us express the idea that one class is can be seen as being kind of included inside another class. So an example here would be that puppies are kind of dog. So we have the same idea of dragging and dropping elements out from this sort of pattern library onto the canvas. But here, with a slight twist on the user interface, the idea here now is that we want to match parts of this pattern with parts of the canvas which are already there. So if I want to say that there is some kind of subsumption relationship, I first take this outer curve here, and I sort of drag it over the canvas and snap it onto this dog curve, which is right here. And so now this subsumption pattern is locked down. It says, well, okay, it's going to be dog subsumes something. And this something I'm going to express by dragging this inner curve here out onto the canvas also and snapping it onto this puppy. The result of completing this action, so what I've done here is that I've snapped both parts of the subsumption pattern onto the canvas, is that well, first of all, this puppy curve is copied over into inside this dog curve, and so now we have this subsumption relationship being expressed. And second of all, the ontology is updated so that the as you can see in this class hierarchy, we recognize now that puppies are kind of a subclass of dog. One thing that's interesting here is that for various technical reasons, we have to copy this puppy curve rather than sort of moving it in. This is sort of a stopgap measure until we can make a much more advanced version of the plugin. So before I move on to the next pattern, I'm just going to delete this little puppy here. Okay, so having looked at class instantiation and subsumption, let's turn now to a slightly more interesting pattern, which is the all values form pattern, which gives us one of a couple of ways of talking about properties that classes in ontology can have. So the idea here is that so what we're trying to express here is the idea that dogs wag tails. And the way we can do this is by using a pattern which works in roughly the same way as the subsumption pattern up here, which is that we have a couple of sort of endpoints of interest, the source and a target, and we have to sort of drag them out and snap them onto some curve in the canvas. So I'm going to try to pull this dog out here and snap it onto dog. And unfortunately, this isn't going to work because there's an ambiguity about whether we mean the puppy or the dog. So what we'll do is we'll just use the search interface to narrow a search down a bit, and this makes it so that we can only match on to dog. Okay. We are also going to snap the target end of this property onto tail, and with that, the property pattern has enough information to sort of to almost complete itself. It creates this little anonymous curve inside the tail, and it creates this little arrow here, and we just have to add this a label to the arrow to complete it. Before I do this, notice that we are not pointing directly at the tail class, but at a little anonymous subclass inside of tail, and this indicates that dogs. So the idea is that dogs wag tails, but they don't wag all the tails out there in the universe. For example, there might be cat tails and squirrel tails and whatnot, and dogs only wag the sort of anonymous class of dog tails. Anyway, so let's see what happens when we add this property label. When we complete this all values from action by typing in this label here, wag, this allows the concept diagram editor to inform the ontology that, okay, well, what we have now is we have this brand new property called wag, and also that this dog class is been slightly updated. It not only is it a subclass of thing, but it's also a subclass of this class expression all values from wag, such that the thing being wagged is a tail. So so what we've said now by drawing this sort of complicated shape here is that a dog is a subclass of things which wag only tails. So what's interesting about this pattern here is that it might be a bit counterintuitive at first, and the sort of thing that you wouldn't necessarily think to do immediately without being extremely familiar with the concept diagram formalism. But having a sort of pattern-based user interface allows us to sort of control this a little bit and help guide users towards producing concept diagrams that reflect sort of the true intention. Another thing which I think is interesting about these diagrams is that they allow us to sort of pack a lot of information into one place. So here, for example, we have both this dog and puppy subsumption being expressed, and also this dog and tail wagging thing, and they're both captured sort of at a single glance, which may be a bit harder to do with a sort of more traditional hierarchical tree-based ontology editing interface that we have here in WebProtege. And this is one of the reasons why the visual modeling group are sort of quite interested in looking into these concept diagrams and seeing what we can do with them. So that's it for the prototype editor. I should stress that this is very much a prototype. There are many sort of rough edges, and there are many things which basically don't work correctly. And in the future, what we hope to have is a much more substantial list of patterns. So we only have these first three patterns here, but we're hoping that other patterns will sort of just be variations on these. And also, generally speaking, just to bring this prototype much closer to a tool that people can use and play with. But for now, we hope that it at least sort of gives an idea of the sort of work that we think would be interesting to do. If you'd like to know more about it, I'll put a little bit more information in the description for this video. But you can also go to ontologyengineering.org. This is all one word, ontology engineering. And that's it. So thanks very much, and until next time.